That certain night, the night we met, there was magic abroad in the air. There were angels dining at the Ritz, and a nightingale sang in Berkeley Square. The moon that lingered over London town, a crescent moon, he wore a frown. How could he know we two were so in love? And that's the love I'm thinking of. Well, just like that song, so I decided I'd sing it. It has nothing to do with what we're cooking today, unless you want to think about the angels dining at the Ritz. And before you dine at a fancy restaurant, you usually have hors d'oeuvres, and that's what we're going to make today. We're going to make some nice hors d'oeuvres. So let's get right to it. All right, I'm going to move the camera so you can see what I'm doing a little closer up and personal. And let's just go right down there like that. Now these are very easy to make hors d'oeuvres. The first thing you're going to do is you're going to preheat your oven to 375 degrees Fahrenheit. And then you're going to want some bacon. And just cut it in half, or if your bacon is fairly long, you might be able to cut it into threes. I've cut mine into halves. You'll want some pineapple chunks and some water chestnut slices. And then a basting sauce. I'm using President's Choice Toasted Sesame. President's Choice is the in-house brand of the Loblaws company. Great Canadian Superstore and Sobeys, independent grocers and a few other, anyway. But you can use what you prefer. You could use Italian dressing, you could use sun-dried tomato and basil, but whatever you want. If you want a little bit of bite, you could use perhaps a sesame toasted or roasted sesame and ginger. But more of a savory type. I wouldn't use a sweet dressing per se, but you could. The other thing you might be able to use if you want would be a teriyaki sauce. All right, let's get to it. We're not going to need this for a while, so I'm going to set it aside. So all we're going to do, you're going to take a bacon slice, and you're going to take a water chestnut slice, and a chunk of pineapple, and you're going to wrap it. Well, the other thing you'll need will be some toothpicks, which I have here. I should have dumped a bunch of them out here. There we go. And you're going to take that toothpick and you're going to skewer it right through the center. And then you'll want a pan with a rack. So you could use, if you have a broiler pan for your stove, you could use that. We're just going to set those on top. What you want is something where the grease from the bacon, the hors d'oeuvres won't be sitting in it. The grease will drain out. And so this is pretty easy, as you can see. Slice of water chestnut and a piece of pineapple, and you roll it. If you can get it to roll. My bacon's got a little tear in the end, which isn't helping things a whole lot. But I'll try and get that wrapped around there and toothpick through it. But these make really nice little hors d'oeuvres if you're having a party or something. Oops, my water chestnut just slipped out of that one. Pop it back in there. Now the bacon, when you cook these, the bacon will of course shrink up a little bit. And so we'll just keep making these. Like I say, it's pretty simple to do. It's just a matter of keeping everything together. So I want to see if you can get that toothpick not only through the bacon, but through the chunk of pineapple and through the water chestnut. And that way everything should stay inside your hors d'oeuvre. Now, while I'm doing this, I'll tell you a little story. There was a chicken and a pig walking down the road one day. They were friends, they're out for a stroll. And as they walked down this country road, not too far from a major city, they saw a big advertising sign. And it said, "Please support your local food bank. Donations needed." And the chicken looks at the pig and says, "You know, that's a good idea. We should try and help out here. Our humans treat us really well. We should see if we can do something to help pay them back." And the pig says, "Yeah, I can't say I disagree with that, but what were you thinking?" And the chicken says, "Well, I thought I could donate a dozen eggs and you could." And the pig interrupts him and says, "Wait a minute. This is for you, this is a donation. For me, it would be a total commitment." So there you have it. So we got these all done up here. Yeah, unfortunately, this, like I said, this bacon's got a little split here on the end, so it makes it a little harder to get it fixed around, but we'll just keep working on it. Now, if you're a vegetarian, you of course are not going to want the bacon. So what you can do instead is take soft tortillas and cut them into strips and follow the recipe basically the same, although you may not need to cook them as long. And you can do this, or you could use, I guess you could use mock bacon. I think they make such a thing. It's probably a soya-based product. So you can see these are going to be kind of a mixture of sweet and savory. And when we cook these, we're going to cook them until the bacon is nice and crispy. But we're going to do it in 3 parts. We won't just stick them in and cook them right through. We'll be cooking them in a 3-part bundle. Now you can see these are sort of more than a mouthful, so it's not a case of just pop it in your mouth, unless you have a fairly good sized mouth, or your bacon strips are smaller, or you can make everything smaller. I guess you could make your pineapple chunks smaller, and your water chestnut slices. Well, they're kind of hard to make smaller, but anyway, you get the idea. But like I say, if you don't want to use bacon, if you're not a fan of bacon, aka a vegetarian or a vegan, then use some soft tortillas. You could even use flavored ones. They make quite a few different flavors of tortillas. You could change it up a bit. And the same with these. Even if you're using the bacon, you can change these up as to what you put inside. Maybe you don't like pineapple. In that case, maybe you replace the pineapple with a button mushroom. Now, the reason I use the water chestnuts is because that gives us this little crunch. And we're going to cook the bacon until it's crunchy as well. Like I say, if you do this with a tortilla, you'll have to kind of experiment on to how long you need to cook them. Now with these, when we cook them, we're going to put them in the first time for about 7 minutes, and then we will turn them. And then this bacon's not cooperating a whole lot today. So, and this is good quality bacon I bought too. Now what you could try, this is regular cut bacon. You could try using the thicker bacon if you wanted to. What's that called? Thick cut bacon, I guess. See, and so anyway, just play around with this recipe. Like I said, you could switch out the bacon for tortillas. You could switch out the pineapple for, say, a button mushroom, or something else. I love recipes where you can change them up. You don't have to go with exactly what the recipe says if you want something different, or maybe you want to do several of each. If you're having a party, that way all your hors d'oeuvres aren't the same. You've got a selection of similarly made and yet different hors d'oeuvres. Let's move this one down here. There we go. So this is going to make, what we got, 3, 4, 12. We got a dozen there right now. Now, one of my favorite parts of making these is I get to drink the pineapple juice. I'm a big fan of pineapple. So you get to eat the juice, drink the juice. I guess I chew the juice, yeah, eat the juice, I don't know. Now I guess if I wasn't being mean today, I could have paused this while I finish up the rest of these. And come back when they were all ready to go in the oven. Now you'll have to kind of play around with your toothpick too, is getting it through where it holds your hors d'oeuvre together the best. Of course, once these are cooked, the bacon will crisp up and they'll stay together fairly well, but you want to leave the toothpick in anyway, just so people have something to pick it up by and to pop it in their mouth. Now, I'm not sure, I'm trying to think what I know I paid $7.99 Canadian for my bacon. The can of pineapple, I believe, was $3.95, and the that one's really falling apart there, so you're gonna make sure you get them together. But I would say probably for under $12 you can make these. And we're going to have 2 more, so this is going to make 2.5 dozen. If you wanted to make them smaller, like I say, you could get, you could do that. A lot of it depends on your cut of bacon. Another thing you could use besides other than bacon would be ham, if you wanted to do that. If you wanted to do them with beef, you could buy some Rouladen beef, very thin sliced beef, and cut that into strips, and you could do it on beef if you wanted to, I guess. Although usually for hors d'oeuvres you are going more with bacon. So we've got this is the last one. Oops. I think you're trying to escape here, mister. This one's kind of falling apart on me. It's always one that doesn't want to cooperate, right? There we go. So now we got them all ready to go in the oven. You want to wash your hands before and after. All right. So we're going to put them now in the oven. For 7 minutes. So set your timer for 7 minutes and start. And we'll come back in 7 minutes and do, whoops, there I am. We'll come back in 7 minutes and turn them, and then we're going to cook them for 8 minutes. And then we'll take them out and we'll marinate them or baste them with the sesame seed, toasted sesame seed salad dressing. And then we're going to cook them for another 5 minutes. And by that time the bacon should have crisped up nicely. And so we'll have the nice crunchy bacon, crunchy water chestnut, and the sweetness of the pineapple. So we'll be back in about 7 minutes. Okay, so we're back. We're down to just a few seconds left on the timer, and we'll pull them out from their first cooking. Let's have a look, see how they're doing.
Yeah, they're looking pretty good. We're going to just turn them over here. See, the bacon's just starting to turn gold around the edges. Check them too, make sure the toothpicks staying in there. Now you can tell if you've turned them or not, because usually the top will go brown before the bottom. So just have a look at them that way. Okay, we've turned them. We're going to put them back in the oven now for 8 minutes. So we'll set our timer for 8 minutes. And we'll come back in 8 minutes, take them out, and at that time we will baste them with the toasted sesame dressing. All right, don't go away. We'll be back for me in 8 minutes, for you in a fraction of a second. Okay, our 8 minutes is almost up. The timer's counting down the final few seconds. And there we go. Bring these out. Now what we're going to do is we're going to take our toasted sesame salad dressing and we're going to baste them. That's the nice thing with being on the tray, and that you can baste them. Be generous. Everybody likes a generous host or hostess. So I was saying to my wife while I was waiting through this 8 minutes, the nice thing with this recipe is you can start off with this recipe, but you can change it up in so many ways that it won't even resemble the original recipe when you're done. So you could take this and, like I say, you could make it with, go to tacos and taco shells, or I don't know, taco shells, tortillas, soft tortillas, and replace the pineapple with a button mushroom. Put an olive in there instead of the water chestnut, or a piece of chunk of tomato, or a cherry tomato. Wrap a cherry tomato in bacon and put a spear through it. All kinds of things you can do with this one. It's a fun recipe. You can just play around with it. Or you could use a different kind of meat. You could use ham or pepperoni. Anything you could cut into strips and roll, you could pretty much use for this recipe. So start with this, with the ham and the pineapple and the bacon and the water chestnut. And if you don't like that, well, then change it up a bit. Try something different. Make it your own thing. Like I say, don't be bashful with the marinade or the basting. I'm going to send these with my wife to her card group, and hopefully it'll distract the people that she's playing with enough. I'll be enjoying it that she'll get the upper hand, and the cards will be on her side maybe today. She plays canasta, so it's not a matter of just some skill, and well, there is some skill involved. But a lot of it depends on the cards too. If you don't get the right cards, you're in trouble. There we go. Alrighty, we're going to put them back in the oven for the last 5 minutes of cooking. And then we'll pull them out and have a look and see how they look. So we'll set our timer for 5 minutes. And We'll be back in 5 minutes and have a look at the finished product. They'll still be a little hot to eat. We'll have to let them cool a bit. Now, the nice thing with these is you can make them ahead and freeze them, and then just pop them in the microwave and heat them up before you serve them. So if you're preparing for a big party down the road or a wedding or something, you could make this is making about 1.5 dozen. So you could make them ahead of time, freeze them, and then just bring them out the morning of whatever you're doing to let them thaw a bit. And then as you're serving them, just pop them in the microwave, heat them up. Probably take 20-30 seconds to heat them up, and serve them warm. Nice thing with bacon is people don't mind bacon cold. So, and if you tell me that's not true, I'll tell you that people often put crumbled bacon on salads, and they don't heat it up first. So anyway, we'll be back in what's left of our 5 minutes to have a look at our finished product. Okay, our timer has just gone off, so let's get our hors d'oeuvres out of the oven and have a look at how they turned out. You can hear them nice and hot, sizzling. And there we go. We have these lovely, lovely hors d'oeuvres. You just need to let them cool a bit before we serve them, because you don't want anybody burning their mouths on hot hors d'oeuvres. But as you can see, they turned out quite nicely. Maybe I'll bring the camera over for a close-up and you can have a good look at them. And I hope you've enjoyed this week's recipe. Like I say, most of the recipes I do, not all, but most of them are ones you can change up. So start off with a basic recipe and then just experiment with it. See how it works best for you. I know the one I did last week with the apple slices, a person told me that their spouse was allergic to coconut and nuts, so that eliminated the coconut and the peanut butter and the pecans and the almonds. So I suggested she might try making them with the apple slices, honey and raisins, or perhaps what we call craisins up here, which are dried cranberries. Something like that, so you get around the nut allergies. So, like I say, don't be afraid to experiment in the kitchen. The worst that's going to happen is you'll be feeding your garbage can. Until Friday, when we have our continuing story of Frank and Abby and the Answers Man, with I believe it's chapter 7. And then we have our shout-outs and groaner. Enjoy your week, and take care, stay safe, and God bless.